Any questions? Yeah, yes, ma'am, in the hard hat.
Yeah, look, I can tell you that some of the things our union is doing, we've recognized that we need to fight not just in the area where we have existing membership, but we need to fight globally. So we've created very, very integrated alliances with unions in 5 different parts of the world. And we recently created a merged organization with the largest industrial union, Great Britain, that we've created now a transatlantic organization that we're calling Workers Uniting as opposed to United, because we see this as an ongoing thing. And we'll be meeting, our steering committee will be meeting in October to develop a global response to the global financial mess. So I think we have to take these companies on wherever they are, but at the same time, I don't want to be misunderstood about, I'm not talking about whether or not Scandinavian company is better than a North American company. What I'm talking about at this point is Scandinavian countries have decided that they want to be good in certain things, and those certain things will have jobs. You talk to Scandinavian workers, and although they've got some different and better labor laws, they still have the same kinds of problems we do, just at a different level of intensity. So that we should never assume that there's been any workers' utopia created yet. Now, on the piece about sort of how do we do it, I think that we need to do a lot more talking to each other. You're the vanguard. The folks that are blogging, the progressive bloggers out there, you're our front line now. There was a time when I used to say, when Marko Turbovich, who some of you might know, came to work for the Steelworkers Union, and I would say, Marko, we got to quit trying to get our story in the New York Times. Our members don't read the New York Times. Our members read the Beaver Valley Times. Okay, we got to get our stuff into Beaver Valley. Well, you know what? We can't get our stuff into Beaver Valley anymore either. So if we're going to get our message out to real people about real issues, it's through you. And you guys have to network yourselves together as well. And we almost need to think of how do we create idea consortiums to getting our messages out. And the hard reality is that in a heartbeat, they would take us back, as far back as they could. We issued a paper. If you're wandering around, you go to the steelworker table in there. We got a wonderful mural. I say it's got 15,000 pictures. Somebody else told me it's 150,000 pictures. It's pictures of workers working all around the world. And it's about stopping global exploitation. But we issued this paper. Deregulation is bad for workers. We don't hear any word about this. The world's gone silent about this, the deregulation of the markets that have created this mess. So you've got deregulated financial markets, you've got deregulated employment markets. They want to deregulate global trade. Now they're going to try to deregulate the global environmental. And if we're not on top of our game, the same thing will happen there as has been happening in the financial markets, been happening in manufacturing. I'm not interested in creating the next bubble through carbon billionaires. The reality is not about whether you have clean environment and good jobs. We're either going to have both a clean environment and good jobs, or we'll have neither. So we have to fight globally, not just in our own region. What is it? Think local, fight global?
That's right.
And
Yes,
we
sir.
just keep on the same policy. We build nothing but gasoline engines. We have no diesel engines, although the microelectronic controls for modern diesel engines are basically American technology. But we have this right-wing nostalgia is considered considered patriotic. A lawyer who makes $1 million a year lobbying Democrats, because he used to be a Democrat, is presumed to be a patriot because he has American flag pin on, and a steelworker is not considered to be nearly so patriotic because what do you make, 50,000? That's not very patriotic.
We're protectionist.
Now, Leo asked a question about Scandinavia. I know those companies in those countries. The engineers in those countries who are leading in climate change technologies went to military school. They think it's extremely unpatriotic to buy natural gas from Russia. They consider it dangerous in Finland, Denmark, and Sweden. But again, we take right-wing nostalgia as patriotism and just don't think anything about considering an utterly obsolete and corrupt industrial policy. We pretend we don't have industrial policy. We have it. I know the people in the Pentagon who administer it. They are right-wing cranks who hand out money to their cronies.
They're at healthcare rallies tonight.
So what we need to ask is, why does the word strategy, it's just a bullshit word that MBAs and lawyers use. It's not a serious term. And we have an obsolete industrial policy, and somehow we don't even ask questions about it.
That's
The worst
it's a
thing
good
I've
question.
seen is every time we sell arms or airplanes abroad, the U.S. government undertakes to import a like amount of generally high technology. Most of these wind turbines are made overseas.
Right.
They were bartered here in exchange for arms. We already have carbon millionaires in this country. They make money by importing
You got to get to a question.
Yeah, yeah.
technology.
So we probably need a
Exporting
question here, right?
arms. So when do Democrats start firing people in the Pentagon or on the House Armed Services Committee
11:45.
who think it's still World War II?
Right. Well, it's a good complex question, and I think it would take a while to get to it. But it's a good point. What we're talking about, I mean, there is clearly a defense industrial policy, although and this would open up a whole different avenue of debate here. One of the important things is public investment. And why do we have the internet? Public investment. Why do we have GPS systems? Public investment. Why do we have the semiconductor? Public investment. Why do we have, many of the aerospace advances that have made today, many of the advances in specialty metals made today because of public investment in that. Does it need to be geared towards our military? Not necessarily, but there's a role for public investment in industrial policy in our economy. It's evolving. We're moving to a clean energy economy, and that's the discussion we're having. You had your hand up, and then we'll take you over there, sir.
There's a woman over there.
Okay.
My name is Carolyn. In 2005 and 2006, I worked at Clairton High School, and Clairton is just right outside of Pittsburgh, and there's still a steel mill there. And so I talked with almost every junior and senior at that high school about what were their plans for their future in college and in their career, and it might not have included college. Not a one of them was interested in manufacturing. Not a one. It was all service sector, doctors, lawyers, nurses, and high tech, IT. So my question to all of us in this room is, what I'm hearing is that manufacturing has a direct correlation to the growth or demise of the middle class. How do we make manufacturing inviting, sexy, a conversation for the future to young people 17 and 18 years old?
I think one of the things we've got to do is we've got to blow up the myth that every kid that goes to college is going to end up on Wall Street pocketing billions for knowing nothing. The fact of the matter is that the best way to get a sustainable middle class living is first and foremost to get a unionized manufacturing job, and secondly, get a unionized job. It can't be manufacturing. And we have to start to talk about the role of unions. and the role of industrial policy, and we have to put it in its very direct way. How do you create wealth? Real wealth is created by making things. And I think we've got to be able to talk to people in a way that understands that the best ladder to the middle class has been through unionization and manufacturing.
Yeah. I want to add one comment and then let Congresswoman Edwards comment on it as well. This is a shameless plug for our book, which is called Manufacturing a Better Future for America. There's a chapter on education and training that gets actually into this issue that you raised in a very big way about how our community college system, our skills and training system have really devolved from from giving people the skills to go into manufacturing and persuading them that it's a career worth entering into a subsidy for corporations for low-wage workers. But it's worth picking up. We had a question from you, ma'am, and then but Congresswoman Edwards
go ahead first.
Actually, all I wanted to validate what you say. I did 20 years in Silicon Valley, and I've worked for about 20 years now. I'm a second generation geek. My grandfather was a rocket scientist. You know, and most of the people I work with.
So much for you don't have to be a rocket scientist.
Right. Most of the people in the valley, many of us, were descendants of defense contractors in the 50s and 60s. This is a generational culture here. Our kids universally want nothing to do with their tech. You know, they see us working the 90-hour weeks. They see us being pushed out of 35 to 40 favors of their workers. They see our jobs going to India, and they're saying, oh no. So these are the kids who are from hereditary families of scientists going back generations, and they're walking away. That's why we're in Australia. We're seeing the same thing in tech.
Well, and IT is itself a manufacturing industry. I was raised by IBM, and of course IBM's computers are also now made in China. So.
Oh, my question was piggybacking on yours, but you know, at what point do you think union, the word union became a bad word? And how can we use our 70, 80, 90-year-old retired union workers to influence the youth? As I've been spending a lot of time in nursing homes the last couple of years, and there are a lot of GM workers in Dayton, Ohio, in nursing homes. And so I think there's a way to utilize their wisdom and the benefits of unions and share it with the youth. I mean, I think that's a real a way to approach that. And then I also wanted to ask you guys, how do other countries deal with the legacy issue?
Well, first of all, there is no legacy in other countries because they have universal, industrialized countries, universal single-payer health care in one form or another. And they've also got a three-legged pension program: savings, public pensions, and private pensions. I can tell you that on that issue, every set of negotiations, we have some of our staff here, every set of negotiations that we have in the last 5 years at least comes down to a fight over health care and pensions. Whether or not you'll get wages or will you put all your money to health care, and what will be the co-pay triggers, caps, all that crap. My accent's not a Pittsburgh accent. In my wallet, I've got my health care card, so if I go see my kid in Canada next week, and I cross the border into Canada, cross in Buffalo, if I get hit on this side of the border, my union pays. If I get hit on the other side of the border, I get nothing. So that's one issue. The other is, I think that we should never have ever made the assumption that unions were accepted in America. They never were. But the fact is, we had some decent labor legislation that had been interpreted fairly, and we're able to, through that, build a half-decent labor movement and keep the middle class strong and growing. Once we reached into the 70s and then followed by Reagan, we really started to deregulate. We deregulated the workplace. We deregulated international trade. We deregulated the financial community. And we moved to an agenda when Ronald Reagan said, it's okay to fire your workers if they got the gall to go out on strike. And that was the carte blanche to accelerate the attack on the labor movement. We went from, in those days, being in the high 20s to now the rate of unionization in America. This one might, if you want to do some blogging on this, do some research on this, and it'll rot your socks. The rate of unionization in America is lower than Mexico, lower than Brazil, lower than South Africa.
I thought in the 50s we were at like 35%.
In the 50s, we're in the high 30s. So
Okay, we have, does anyone else have a
Can I
comment?
just make one comment, and it's this, that I think Tula hit on something really important earlier, and it's about thinking about what this 21st century economy is. And I don't think that we're going to be in an environment where we go and somehow retrieve all those jobs that left and bring them all back here, but we think differently about the kinds of jobs that we're creating. And even in the best of all circumstances, most kids graduating from high school are not going to college, but they need to do something. And they need to be skilled up and trained to do the jobs for the future. In one of the bills, we passed so many spending bills recently, but in the omnibus appropriations bill, we put, I think, about $500 million into investments in Job Corps and other kinds of programs to train young people to do 21st century jobs. In my district, one of our Job Corps centers that takes some of our most difficult young people to train them is teaching them how to install and maintain solar panels. But I would like them to be building those solar panels here in the United States. And so I think that when we talk about a new manufacturing sector, that new manufacturing sector can't just be the retread of what manufacturing was in the 19th and 20th century, because we'll still be left behind. And it also means that the 80%, whatever the number is, it's a pretty significant number of students coming out of high school need to go into vocational and technical schools, go into apprenticeship programs, use our community colleges not just to produce people who are pushing paper around, but who are actually building things and working on stuff. And I think we can do that. And so I want to kind of end the panel in a way on a higher note, because it does feel like a bit of a downer. And I don't think it has to be. And I think the role that you play in describing what this new economy looks like is really important. There's been so much language around quote unquote green jobs, and I'm going to tell you something. You can go to any main street in this country and nobody can tell you what a darn green job is. And so you all have to tell us what green jobs are, where they'll be, what kind of jobs will be created, what the skill base will be that'll be needed for that, and how it fuels our economy for the 21st century. Begin to tell that story, and trust me, people will embrace the idea that their kids are actually going to get out of high school and get jobs that will allow them to take care of themselves and their families. And then finally, I want to say, I introduced a bill that is to raise the minimum wage for tipped employees, waiters, waitresses who work on tips. Right now, they make about, the federal minimum wage hasn't been increased in, I don't know, 20 years, something like that, and they make $2.13 an hour. But around this country, there are people now who are adults, who are young adults, older adults, working for tips, who used to work in the manufacturing sector. And I want to increase the wages for those folks, but my God, you cannot take an $18, $25 an hour job and replace it with a $2.13 an hour job and hope to build this country and call it a job. And so we have a lot of work to do, but the biggest part of that for you and for all of us is to start educating the American people about what our dream is for manufacturing for the 21st century, and that it's reality-based, and that it's not about, you know, jumping back to the 1950s. Some of us actually didn't fare so well in the 1950s, and so we really don't want to go back there.
I think Leo will make a final point, and then I'm going to introduce a video because we're at our allotted time.
Let me, the woman from Clareton, I just was thinking about your standing up and saying what you were doing at the high school, and I don't know that people in the room even know. I don't even know that people in the room even know about Clareton. Last fall, as a result of negotiations with our union about forcing the steel industry to reinvest in America, United States Steel was going to rebuild a brand new state-of-the-art coke battery that would have been, again, a huge reduction in carbon emissions. It would have created 2,000 man-years of work to build that coke battery, and it would have guaranteed manufacturing jobs in that valley for the next 30 years. U.S. Steel lost the opportunity to do that because when the Wall Street financial collapse happened, there was a credit crunch. U.S. Steel, that has been in existence for over 100 years, couldn't access the credit market. When finally the credit market loosened up, these guys were getting money at 0.25% from the Fed, told U.S. Steel that they would have to pay double-digit interest if they wanted to borrow the money now. So those are the kinds of things that lead to this kind of story in the paper today. The World Trade Center that got blown up, and we should never forget it, had been built with steel from Bethlehem Steel that made the best structural steel in the world. The so-called Freedom Tower that's going up, 70-ton perimeter columns are now being lowered into place, and they're made outside the country in Luxembourg. So that ain't very hard to figure out.
Indeed, a lot to think about. I want to thank you all for attending today. A couple of things that, of tools that I think would be useful and events you should know about. We have a little book that can fit in your pocket called the Little Blue Book of Big Trade Problems that has every statistic you'd ever want to know about manufacturing and trade. If you have nothing to do Friday night, or even if you have other plans, you can hop parties. We are doing a night at the ballpark at PNC Park, home of the Pirates, where you can take batting practice and be on the Field of Dreams. You can pick up tickets at our booth.
You can teach the Pirates how to hit?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it'll be, yeah, we promise Pittsburgh Pirates will be pitching, so you'll actually be able to hit it out of the park. Yeah, we don't have automatic pitchers. We actually have Pittsburgh Pirates, so it'll make your job a little easier. The Campaign for America's Future did a great report on manufacturing in Pittsburgh, prepared for your use and also just in advance of the G20. It's particularly useful. I mentioned our book. We have a couple of spaces left on our plant tour that will be leaving in literally 10 minutes. We'll be back before the 3 o'clock panels. If you're interested in going, why don't you see me right after, and I'll be walking over to the bus.
Got somebody in the back is saying no, no.
Okay, I guess we're sold out. Okay, never. I apologize for that. Next time we'll get you. And
but go to the booth and get a hard hat anyway.
Yeah, that's right. We have hard hats that are made in America that you can take home as a souvenir. And finally, I want to leave you with a song that we have up on YouTube that I hope you'll share with your readers, friends, family. It is called "Are We Going to Make It in America This Year?" It's actually sung by a steelworker from Baltimore, Maryland, with lyrics that were designed by one of our staff and also Ike Gitlin, who runs our field program. And on your way out, it takes less than 3 minutes. I thought I'd share that with you, and the lyrics are here, and it's a double entendre, but I think you'll appreciate it. And thank you very much for attending today. And thank you to our panelists as well. They were terrific.